Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Another hour of crime today with the lives of Harry Lime, The Shadow, and Phyl Coe Mysteries. And we thank you for joining us on this Thursday. This is the 19th day of October, 292nd day of the year, 73 days left till we get to 2024. At Yorktown, Virginia, on this date in 1781, British Commander Lord Cornwallis surrendered to a Franco-American force led by George Washington and the Comte de Rochambeau, paving the way for the end of the American Revolutionary War. 1873, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, and Rutgers universities drafted the first Code of American Football Rules. In 1917, Love Field in Dallas opened, and in 1933, Germany withdrew from the League of Nations. In 1935, the League of Nations placed economic sanctions on fascist Italy for its invasion of Ethiopia. One has to wonder, if the U.S. had actually joined the League of Nations, would we have had World War II, or as bad a war as we saw? In 1943, streptomycin, the first antibiotic remedy for tuberculosis, isolated by researchers at Rutgers University. In 1953, Arthur Godfrey fired Julius LaRosa live on American national television for lack of humility.
Thanks ever so much, Julie. That was Julie's swan song with us. He goes now out on his own, as his own star, soon to be seen in his own programs, and I know you wish him Godspeed, same as I do. This is the CBS Radio Network.
Arthur Godfrey was quite the egomaniac and not the nice guy role he portrayed on television. That took place on this date in 1953. 1973, President Nixon rejected an appeals court demand to turn over the Watergate tapes. In 1974, President Ford directed federal agencies to cut energy consumption in the wake of an oil shortage.
Unless there is an early end to the Middle East crisis, we are going to have to choose between driving our cars less or closing down certain schools, factories, and office buildings, as well as going cold in some of our homes for periods of time this winter.
And in 1982, John DeLorean arrested for trafficking in cocaine.
DeLorean was arrested this afternoon at approximately 3 p.m. in the vicinity of the Los Angeles airport after arriving here from New York. Now, arrangements had been made. We are prepared to charge in our complaints to between Hedrick and DeLorean for the delivery of approximately 100 kilos of cocaine, which were to be purchased by DeLorean for distribution in Southern California.
DeLorean would later be acquitted, but it was too late. It basically destroyed his business. In 1985, the first Blockbuster video store opened in Dallas, Texas. There is one remaining, as I recall, and I believe it's in Oregon, but I'm not certain. In retaliation for Iranian attacks on ships in the Persian Gulf, the Navy disabled 3 of Iran's offshore oil platforms on this date in 1987. On that same date, the Dow plunged by 22%.
Been sitting at this desk for 12 years. I've not seen panic like this ever. I have records back all the way into the 20s. In 1942, we had some panic in 29. But this is global, and it's feeding on itself.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell exactly 508 points to 1,739, 22.61%. In 2003, Mother Teresa beatified by Pope John Paul II, and in 2005, Saddam Hussein went on trial in Baghdad for crimes against humanity. Passing away on this date in history, actor Gig Young, the very funny Martha Ray, pro wrestler Road Warrior Hawk, actor Tom Bosley, wrestler Mike Grimm, and the son of Rex Harrison, Noel Harrison. You remember him from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and The Windmills of Your Mind. Birthdays today include jazz drummer Cozy Cole, journalist and muckraker Jack Anderson, actor Robert Reed, the second Dumbledore after Richard Harris's death, Michael Gambon, who passed away earlier this year at the age of 82, and actor Divine. Psychedelic pop artist Peter Max is still alive at 86. The man who sang about Rock Your Baby, George McCrae, 79. He has 2 Tony Awards, 6 Emmy Awards, 2 Golden Globes, 3 Screen Actors Guild Awards, an American Comedy Award, 4 Drama Desk Awards, and yet we still remember him as a funny alien in Third Rock from the Sun. John Lithgow, 78. Dare I mention also his role in The Day After, which was a very serious, dramatic role. John Lithgow, 78 today. Sang about Harper Valley PTA, Jeannie C. Briley, still with us at 78. You remember him most from Extreme Makeover Home Edition, Ty Pennington, 59. South Park creator Trey Parker, 54. From Saturday Night Live, Chris Kattan is 53. From Community, Jillian Jacobs is 41. And from The Young and the Restless, the very lovely Hunter King, 30 years old. Those some of the people celebrating the 19th day of October as their birthday. If this happens to be your birthday,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
And we head back 72 years, October 19th, 1951, Orson Welles, The Lives of Harry Lime. That's next on this Thursday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
This is Lyle Wagoner for the IRS with a word about accuracy. When you do your income tax return, check your math. Use the peel-off label and envelope from your tax package. Attach all W-2s and schedules. And don't forget to sign your return. Be accurate. Then things go right. No delays if you're waiting for a refund. A message from the IRS.
Alrighty, on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. By the way, visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Gives you links to all of our Classic Radio Theater websites. Our social media is what I mean to say. Twitter and X, I guess it is now, and the Book of Faces. And you can find links to stream our shows, and you can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. And if you'd like to buy me a copy is greatly appreciated. But now we head to October 19th, 1951, 72 years ago, Orson Welles, The Lives of Harry Lime.
Presenting Orson Welles as the third man. The Lives of Harry Lime. The fabulous stories of the immortal character originally created in the motion picture The Third Man, with zither music by Anton Karas.
Now, here's a little anecdote taking place in the city of Bordeaux. It has to do with a phase of my hectic career, which was almost exclusively a chase. I was a big boy by then, but there's a school teacher in the story all the same. His name was Professor Saint-Pierre. He didn't mean any harm, but he caused me plenty before it was over.
And now Orson Welles as Harry Lime, the third man in Blue Bride.
Now, this little cautionary tale took place a couple of years ago in the French port of Bordeaux. I'd taken lodgings above one of the choicest dives that the place has to offer. The proprietress was an enormous woman called affectionately by the sailors La Grosse Fifi, a formidable female if I ever saw one. I found the location a convenient base for certain of my business transactions. I'd circulated a rumor that I was writing a book about the waterfront. Unfortunately, St. Pierre got wind of it. Evidently, La Grosse Fifi mistook the little teacher for one of my clients and let him up. I was going over some accounts when there was a knock on my door. Who is it?
It is I, Professor St. Pierre from the lycée. I desire very much to speak with you.
St. Pierre? Who are you?
Please, it is of the utmost importance. I will not take up much of your time.
Okay. What is it?
Those papers on your desk. Notes for your book, no doubt.
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, they are. I'll just gather them up and put them away.
Oh, no, please. I do not mean to interrupt your work, mon cher Dr. Lime. I have long thought that some scholar should write a book on the waterfront of our beloved Bordeaux. Such a wealth of material. The mixture of dialects, the different racial strains, the songs and stories of the sailors. I cannot tell you how happy I am that someone like yourself has the time to devote to this project.
Well, that's very kind of you, I'm sure.
Dr. Lime, with all the deference to a scholar like yourself, I must make a confession. I'm only a humble teacher, but for many years I have dreamed of doing just what you are engaged in.
Really?
I've wanted to write a book about the waterfront of Bordeaux.
Well, why don't you?
I have neither the time nor the money. All winter I must teach at the lycée. During the summer months I act as a tutor to make a little extra.
Oh, you do, yes.
I would like you to have the use of these notes of mine here. I have them in my briefcase. Many hundreds of pages. You see, language is my speciality, and I have noted down specimens of all the different dialects to be found here.
I see.
I would like you to have them here.
Well, that's I'm very indebted to you, Professor.
Professor St. Pierre, here is my card.
Thank you. I'll return your notes when I finish with them. And now I hate to seem rude.
Of course, I understand. You are anxious to get on with your work. What is that noise? It seems to be coming from over our heads.
Sounds like someone on the roof. Making repairs, I guess.
It seems strange to be making repairs at night. Are you sure it is?
Yes, it's nothing to worry about, old man. Now, good night, Professor St. Pierre. You really must excuse me.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
There is just one more thing. I hesitate to mention it. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
The professor jumped out of the way just in time. The body of a man half fell, half jumped into the room, landing crumpled at our feet. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Qu'est-ce que c'est? Who is this man?
It's one of the workmen around the place. I'm afraid he's been hurt.
Yes, there is blood on his head.
I think we should get a doctor. I wonder if you could...
Yes, a doctor, of course. I will go right away.
That's very, very good. I'll do what I can for him in the meantime. Thanks very much, old man. Good. Now, get up, you fool. You're not hurt. Raoul, you hear me?
When I ran, they shot it.
Are you hit?
No, but
just a cut from the glass. We'll fix it later. You'll live. Not that you deserve to. Fifi, viens ici.
Que voulez-vous, monsieur?
Come up here.
Oui, chérie.
Raoul's in here. Had a little accident.
But how did he? The skylight. You will pay for the glass.
Yes, I'll pay for the glass.
He's dead?
No, he's not dead, only resting. Now, here's what I want you to do for me. You know that little man who just left here?
Oui, the little one.
Yeah, he's coming back in a few minutes, and you are not to let him in here. Do you understand?
Oui, monsieur, I understand.
Good.
If he tries to come up again, I will crack a bottle over his head.
Fifi, I adore you. All right, Raoul, now tell me what this is all about. Did anyone follow you?
Yes, but I lost them 6 blocks away. I was afraid of the streets, so I took to the roofs. I had to hide somewhere, so I came here.
You picked a fine time. What happened? Did you get into another fight? I told you, old man, any more brawling, and our deal is off.
This time it was no fight. Barras knows about us.
Barras? Commissar of Police. How could he know? Talk, you fool.
Talk, please, monsieur. Do not shake me, my head.
You'll be worse off if you don't tell me. How do you know Barat knows? Are you sure?
Oui, I'm sure. I passed 45,000 franc notes myself. We have so many. Oh, no, please. It's that little Marianne. She kept wanting me to buy her.
Idiot, I gave you orders that none of that money was to be used in France.
But for a man to carry that much money around and not to be able to use just a little, I never thought. And today the shopkeeper turned in an alarm, and before I knew it, I am being chased.
Listen, old man, another stunt like this and the police won't have to chase you. Now get out. I'll call you when I want you. Go over and wash the blood off. Barras, the only man I really was scared of in the whole city of Bordeaux. Barras, the young, dynamic commissar of police. He had a reputation for tenacity and integrity, which made jobs like mine very far from easy. You see, I was in competition with the French government. We were both printing money. I was selling my currency to sailors and traders on the way to French West Africa, where chances of detection were much less. In a few days, I had an appointment with a trader on his way down there, which promised to be my biggest deal. But how much did this man Barras know? I had to find out. I made some inquiries. I can't understand how a girl like you can be satisfied to be just a maid. Why, with your looks and intelligence and personality, you should be on the stage.
Oh, on the stage?
On the stage.
No, I will tell you one thing, Harry. If I were on the stage, I would be better than she ever was. I never saw her, but to hear her talk sometimes, you would think she was greater than Yvonne Printemps.
Who's this?
Her, my mistress, of course. Madame Sophie Barras.
Is she an actress?
Well, she was before she married Monsieur Barras. She went by the name of Sophie Avant. But if you ask
How long have you worked for Madame Barras?
Only since she was married 2 months ago.
Only 2 months ago, then she's still a bride.
Well, not a very happy one. Sometimes I do feel sorry for her. It is terrible.
Well, Pauline, what's terrible? Does he beat her?
No, he does nothing.
Oh.
All the time, it is work, work, work. That is what she said to him last night. I heard them as I was clearing the table.
What? That's all I ever hear.
Oh, I'm sorry, darling.
We never go anywhere together. Half the time, we do not even dine together. Is this the way you treat your bride? Sometimes I'm not even sure that you love me.
Ah, no, Sophie, this is not fair. Would I have married you if I did not love you?
You see, you are raising your voice to me already.
But I am only trying to tell you that I must have loved you or I wouldn't have...
Aha, you speak in the past. This means you no longer love me in the present.
Oh, but I do, my little one. Come here.
Georges.
Now, do you believe me?
Mais oui, Georges. Georges.
Yes, my sweet.
Perhaps we could go somewhere this evening. Somewhere with music and just a few people, and then walk home slowly together, just as we used to walk last spring in Paris.
Oh, I wish we could, but I have to go over some reports.
Now you make me angry.
Oh.
You think you can set my mind at ease with only one kiss? No, but... A kiss that does not take up more than a few seconds of your official time.
No, Sophie, you've got to try to understand. There are some things which I cannot entrust to anyone else, and this is one of them. A vicious ring of counterfeiters has evidently descended on Bordeaux. We almost caught him in today, but he disappeared down near the waterfront. But next time we will not fail. Meantime, I must try to trace the bills to their source.
This is all very well, but it seems to me that you are more concerned with your work than you are with your poor wife.
Oh, you refuse to understand.
You also refuse to understand. You even refuse to tell the truth. You say you love me and you want to be with me, and then you...
Oh, I don't want to hear anymore. I am going to the office.
Oh, Georges.
See how it is, Harry? I hope you never treat me like this.
Don't worry about that, Jolie.
You do not find this a depressing marriage?
No, I can't say that I do. In fact, I find it quite inspiring. You have a good ear, Pauline, old girl. I could almost hear them talking.
Well, listening is the only thing that makes it interesting to be a maid.
You know, you're a very bright girl, even brighter than I thought. Supposing I put you and your packages into a cab from here. Taxi!
Oh, but maids do not ride in cabs.
Oh, they do when they have money. Here, close your warm little hand around this.
Ooh, Harry, so much.
Not as much as you deserve. Au revoir, my dear. Keep those pink little ears open, and tomorrow, if you have some information for me, I'll give each one of those pink little ears a little kiss.
Oh, Harry.
Orson Welles returns in just a moment as the third man.
October 19th, 1951, 72 years ago, the Lives of Harry Lime continues following these important messages.
Our religious institutions are strongholds of the American way of life. Our country was founded by men who had faith in God and who were willing to endure hardship and sacrifice for the sake of that faith. Today, the religious institutions in your community need your interest and support, so take an active part in religious affairs. Your pastor, rabbi, or priest will give you invaluable family counsel and aid if you are a newcomer to the community. To face the problems of the future, America must be morally strong. And that moral strength comes through worship and faith. Go to church this week and take someone with you.
Now, more on this Thursday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. By the way, in case I didn't say it, I don't know if I did, the web page is classicradio.stream, not .com, classicradio.stream. Now the conclusion of The Lives of Harry Lime, starring Orson Welles, 72 years ago, October 19th, 1951.
And now, Orson Welles, as the third man, continues with The Blue Bride.
Back at Le Trois Fifi told me that a gentleman was waiting in the back room. This proved to be the venerable blackguard who went by the aristocratic name of Captain Dominique de Chateaubriand. The captain is engaged in trade with the natives of French West Africa, and it was on him that I hoped to unload a large amount of my counterfeit stock.
Ah, Monsieur Lime. Enchanté de vous voir.
Enchanté. What can I do for you, Captain?
As you know, I am dealing with some natives in the interior. Some missionaries have told them the value of their merchandise, which I used to buy for next to nothing. Now they want cash in return for their goods and ivory. If your money is as good as I hear it is, they will be quite happy with it. Until they try to spend it, of course. But by that time, I will be well out of the way.
Clever man.
You agree with me, Monsieur Lime?
Entirely. I should be happy to be of service.
Bon. What is your denomination?
Well, that sounds like a personal question.
I mean, how large are the counterfeit bills?
5,000 franc notes.
May I see one, please?
Sure. I have one here.
Ooh, very good. Good enough for the purpose, anyway.
How many will you need?
I will need at least 50,000 of these notes.
That's a lot of money, Captain. It's more than I have with me, in fact, but I can get the rest from my source in Paris if you can wait a week or so.
Yes, I can wait. If you will guarantee to have it here within a week, and at the regular rates.
Agreed.
Très bien, monsieur. Au revoir, monsieur.
Au revoir, Captain. With this big deal in the offing, it became necessary to throw Barras off the trail for at least a week or so. The next morning, I found out from my little friend Pauline that Madame Barras spent most of her lonely afternoons sitting by herself in a small cafe known as La Vert Rouge. That afternoon, I happened to be sitting in La Vert Rouge when she arrived. So I went over to a table and tipped my hat. Pardon, but are you not Madame Sophie Avant of the stage?
Why, yes, monsieur, I am. But how did you know my name?
I've often admired your work. Yes. But alas, I never had the courage to come backstage and meet you, much as I wanted to.
Well, this is marvelous. To find someone who actually remembers my name and face.
Well, it's not a face to forget easily, Mademoiselle Avant.
I am Madame now, monsieur. Madame Parra.
I beg your pardon, I did not know.
Oh, that's quite all right. Won't you sit down?
Well, just a minute, yes, if I'm not intruding.
Now, tell me, what shows did you see me in?
First, let me ask you a question, if you'll forgive me. What are you doing in Bordeaux? You, whom I always imagine surrounded by the bright lights and all the gaiety of Paris.
I came here with my husband. This is his home.
Oh, I see.
He is a commissaire of police of Bordeaux.
You don't say. Must be a very interesting job.
For him it is interesting. For me it is dull.
Oh, I don't quite follow.
I have no right to talk this way to a stranger.
But don't forget that I am a stranger who has known you and been interested in you for a long, long time.
Oh, it is not fair to burden you with my troubles, but today I am, how you say, blue.
Oh, a blue bride, eh? Well, if I can help in any way.
Oh, monsieur, I'm so unhappy. I do not know what to do or where to turn.
Are you sure your husband loves you, madame?
Oh, yes, I'm sure of that. And I know I love him, but unless something is done right away, the marriage will not last.
Does it mean enough to you to try to save it?
Oh, yes.
Well, you're young and beautiful. You should be able to lure any man away from his duty.
But my husband is not any man, monsieur.
Nonsense. All you lack is confidence. You need to feel more sure of yourself, and believe me, madame, you have every right to.
But what can I do?
It seems to me that the only hope for both of you is to get away from Bordeaux for a while. Away from everything that reminds him of his work. Surely he has competent assistants to whom he could turn things over for at least a week or so.
I don't see how I can get him to come away. We have even had to postpone our honeymoon last spring because he was so busy.
Well, then there's your answer. A honeymoon trip. And the sooner the better.
But I know he won't leave his work, especially right now.
He will if you force the issue once and for all. And if his marriage means anything to him.
What do you mean, force the issue?
I mean, suppose you packed your bags. We're ready to leave, with or without him. Tell him if there's no honeymoon, you're on your way back to Paris for good. In a day or so, you and your husband will be enjoying a nice little cruise somewhere, believe me.
That sounds wonderful. How I wish it could come true.
Well, it can come true. If only you won't lose your courage.
But I don't really want to leave him, even if he will not do what I want.
But you've got to make him believe that you would actually leave.
Do you think I can?
My dear Sophia, you are an actress, are you not?
Of course I am.
Of course you
I'll
are.
do it. I'll do it this very evening. Oh, monsieur, I can't tell you how grateful I am to you.
No, please.
And now I must go home and make preparations.
Look out, it started to rain again. Do you have an umbrella?
Oh, no, I ran out of the house without one.
Here, take mine.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
I insist.
Oh, thank you, monsieur. You are a true friend. Au revoir.
Au revoir, madame. And I wish you both much happiness. My plans were going well. The next morning, Pauline told me that Monsieur and Madame Barras had suddenly decided to take a little trip. They were leaving the next day for a week or so. Believe me, I breathed a sigh of relief. The day after their scheduled departure on their overdue honeymoon, I got a wire from Paris. I was to pick up a shipment of money from a carrier who would arrive shortly at the airport. So I met the carrier, picked up the suitcase full of phony 5,000-franc notes, and hailed a cab. Sailed past. I tried another, no luck. I started to walk back toward the city. I didn't know at the time that in a black police limousine not far away, a conversation something like this was going on.
Oh, Georges, I'm so happy. Soon we'll really be alone together.
I must confess, I am not sorry you forced me into this position. I'm happy myself. This little vacation will be so good for us both.
Oh, there he is.
There who is?
It is he, the kind gentleman from the cafe. I don't even know his name, but we owe everything to him.
But I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, please, George, let's stop. I must speak to him for just a moment.
Oh, you mean the man with the suitcase?
Yes.
But he's going in the other direction.
It'll only take a minute. We have time. Oh, please, George, it means so much to me. Have the driver turn around and follow him.
Oh, I don't know what feminine madness this is, but today I can refuse you nothing.
Oh, it's not madness. I just want to say a few words with him and return a piece of his property. Pauline put it among your things by mistake.
All right. Duclos, turn around and follow the man with the suitcase.
Call him. Maybe he'll stop.
Hey, you with the suitcase, stop.
Oh, he's only walking faster. Oh, can't we get through this traffic somehow?
The sooner the better. Duclos, turn on the siren.
When I heard the voice shouting at me to stop, I could only think of getting away, naturally. And then when I heard the siren, that was the end. I turned a corner quickly and started to run. After all, when one is carrying a fortune in counterfeit bills in a police car with a siren is close behind, I cut across a little park. Maybe to get to the other side in time, I might be able to throw them off. But just then, I ran smack into a little man in a white suit. The heavy bag I was carrying threw me off balance for a minute, long enough for him to grab me by the lapels. With a broad smile, I saw to my dismay that it was the ever-helpful Professor Saint-Pierre.
Ah, Dr. Lime, how fortunate that I should run into you.
Yes,
Although
yes.
it was really you who ran into me, huh? That is a joke.
Yes, a very funny joke. I'm in a hurry. I'm awfully
But
sorry.
I want to ask you about that poor workman who fell through the roof the other night. How is he?
It's
what about
fine.
his family? If I could be of any
Thank you.
financial help to them, or if there is anything I can do for you.
You can get out of my way.
Dr. Lime, I am surprised at you. I know you are a busy man, but...
I pushed him roughly out of my way and ran on. But valuable seconds had been lost. I reached the other side of the parking. I called, taxi! Taxi! A long black car rounded the corner. I recognized it in time and started to run again. I ran up the steps of a large building. I realized it was the public library and decided to seek refuge there, but the weight I was carrying made me trip on one of the stone steps, and I lost my balance, and the suitcase went flying, skinned my knee, and my palms of my hands were all bruised. An old man insisted on helping me to my feet, fussing over me. The suitcase had rolled down the steps. The old man chased it. I couldn't wait. The only thing in my mind at the moment was escape. I have an aversion to French jails. I ran up to the big brass doors at the top of the steps. Just as I reached the entrance, a uniformed guard was stretching a metal grill work across it. He was most polite.
Sorry, monsieur, but library hours are over for today. You will have to wait until tomorrow.
I ran down the steps again. In a cold sweat, I hurried into the street, heard the shriek of brakes, and realized that I'd been narrowly missed by a truck. I hurried on, ran smack into the arms of a traffic policeman. The gendarme held my arm firmly and stopped the truck to bawl out the driver.
What's the matter with you? Didn't you see this man? You almost killed him.
But officer,
His signals were against you, not against him. You're a menace to pedestrians. This poor man here. Let me see your license.
Please, officer, it's quite all right.
Begging your pardon, monsieur, but I am here to protect your rights.
very
These
kind of
fellows
you.
must be taught a lesson.
So I was forced to stand there with a policeman in the middle of the busy street while he upbraided the driver. The siren grew closer and closer. When the gendarme finally released me and I reached the other side of the street, another whistle blew.
Hey, hold that man, Monsieur Barras.
In a flash, I felt the gendarme's hand on my arm again, and we were standing beside the big black police car.
Well, sir, you gave us a merry chase. What was all the hurry?
Why did you run away, monsieur?
You?
Yes, it is I whom you advised in the cafe, you remember?
Oh.
I saw you from the car and I wanted to say thank you and give you this, your umbrella.
My umbrella?
Yes, you lent it to me that day.
Oh.
Now perhaps you will explain your anxiety to avoid us,
Well, this is very embarrassing, really, especially since this is a police car. You see, it was the siren. I have a phobia about sirens. Ever since I was a child and had to run from a burning house, I've had this same unreasoning fear. No matter how much I analyze it, it's something I just can't control. I have to run. Yes, I feel like a fool, but that's the way it is. Every time there's a fire in the neighborhood, I have one of these same running fits. All sirens sound alike to me, you see.
I see.
How unfortunate.
What is this? What happens here?
Professor St. Pierre.
I saw you from the other side of the street, and I came over to see what was the matter.
It's very
Bonjour,
kind of you.
Commissaire Barras.
Bonjour, Saint-Pierre. Do you know this man?
Indeed, I do. This is Dr. Lime, the scholar who is here in Bordeaux doing research for a book.
Oh, yes, that's right, yes.
An eccentric scholar.
Yes, eccentric
All
scholar.
scholars
Yes,
are
yes.
eccentric.
Well, perhaps you are right.
This was a stroke of luck. For once, the helpful professor really helped. He continued to talk to Barras about me until the policeman's suspicions abated. I was finally able to say my goodbyes and start walking away from the group when Sophie Barras called after me.
Monsieur, you had a suitcase.
I must have dropped it.
Oh, well, wait. We will help you to find
Oh,
it.
no, don't bother. I'll get it.
Harry Lime returns in just a moment. And now, Harry Lime.
By this time, I was running again. I glanced back over my shoulder just in time to see the old man gesticulating excitedly over the suitcase and holding up a fat packet of franc notes. I can imagine that Barras' fury when he realized that he let the prize slip through his fingers was equaled only by Sophie's when she realized the identity of her friendly family counselor. I wonder whether she ever got her honeymoon. I heard the siren again in a few seconds, but this time I made good my head start. And as the sun sank over the sea, I bade farewell to beautiful Bordeaux, to my beautiful little waterfront business, and to the beautiful blue bride.
There you have it, 72 years ago, October 19th, 1951, The Blue Bride. Orson Welles, The Lives of Harry Lime. Here on this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Up next,
The Shadow.
Now more on this Thursday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox as we continue with an episode of The Shadow starring William Johnstone. This goes back 82 years, October 19th, 1941, The Hoodoo Ship.
Be sure to hear our special guest at the end of today's program. And now, the thrilling adventures of the Shadow are on the air, brought to you each week at this time by your neighborhood blue coal dealer. These dramatizations are designed to demonstrate forcibly to old and young alike that crime does not pay. Get the jump on winter. Put in a supply of blue coal now, and you'll have a head start on cold weather. Don't wait until some of your family start catching cold before you tackle your heating problem. It's so easy to start the season off right with comfortable, economical blue coal. So place your order now. And remember, this year it's well to start the season with a big supply. The producers of blue coal expect no shortage of this finest of all hard coal, but present unsettled conditions make it wise to be prepared. Call your neighborhood blue coal dealer tomorrow and order your winter supply of blue coal. The Shadow, mysterious character who aids the forces of law and order, is in reality Lamont Cranston, wealthy young man about town. Several years ago in the Orient, Cranston learned a strange and powerful secret. The secret of hypnotic power to cloud men's minds so that they cannot see. Cranston's friend and companion, the lovely Margot Lane, is the only person who knows to whom the voice of the invisible Shadow belongs. Today's drama, The Hoodoo Ship. The date, 1850. The place, aboard the slave ship Raven, flying between Africa and America.
Mr. Carway, sir. What is it now, Peters? What thunderation do you want? That ship, sir.
What ship?
The ship, sir, that has been following us since yesterday noon. Tell the first mate to pile on more canvas. We'll outrun her. Every piece of canvas we have is in use, sir. If we're caught with our cargo... We'll not be caught with our cargo. But the ship's a man of war, and she's faster taking us. We'll not be caught with our cargo, mister. What do you mean, sir? I mean we're dumping those slaves overboard. But they'll drown. Without a trace. The man of war may catch us, mister, but she'll never be able to prove we carried slaves. Well, why are you standing there, gape-jawed? You heard my orders. Over the side with a lot of them. And when the man of war comes athwart us and asks our cargo, tell them we don't carry one. That we're just traveling for our health.
And that, Lamont and Miss Lane, is the history of this old ship, the Raven.
A pretty gruesome history, Mr. Crew.
But how does the haunted story originate? On almost every voyage this old ship made after that, someone died. Finally, men refused to sail her. She's been harbored for the last 20 years. How long have you had this ship? Only a short while. You see, I was in something of a spot with the government taking over most of the merchant marine. And when I found the Raven for sale, it was a godsend.
Well, were you told about this legend of death concerning the ship when you bought it?
Yes, but I thought it was just a story. A story such as any old sailing ship might have acquired in its long life.
Something has happened to make you think otherwise?
On its first trip from my plantations, The captain was murdered in his cabin.
Oh, but that doesn't necessarily
The door
mean
was locked from the inside, and there wasn't a mark on his body. Frankly, Cranston, I, too, am beginning to believe this ship is accursed.
I was watching the men taking the stuff off in that boat while I was waiting for you and Miss Lane, Mr. Cranston.
Oh, were you, Shrevey?
Yes, sir. Ain't it too bad that the days of sailing boats is over, that they're over?
Why do you say that, Shrevey?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I read it somewheres. I was just making with the conversation, like they say. You two have been so quiet, I was just making with the conversation.
Like they say.
Yeah. Gee, I would like very much to be a sailor. Sailing on the briny deep and batten down the hatches and stuff.
Well, Shrevey, I don't think you'd like that ship.
Why not? I'm thinking to myself, that ship is beautiful.
In a repulsive sort of way.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Shrevey, that ship once carried slaves from Africa to America.
Is that so? Well, you can't blame the ship, you can't blame.
No, but the taint of the men who indulged in that business still seems to stick to her.
Well, that's quite understandable. What do you mean, Mr. Cranston?
That ship is haunted.
Oh, well, You mean it's got ghosts, it's got?
Shrevey, watch where you're driving.
Yes, ma'am. I thought for a minute you said the ship was haunted.
She did.
Oh, Shrevey, you're too excitable.
Yes, ma'am. I'll keep reminding myself of that. I'll keep.
Well, after all, it may be only a peculiar combination of circumstances.
Lamont, don't you believe what Mr. Carew told us?
That the captain was found dead in his cabin?
With the door locked on the inside?
Margot, the captain may have died from natural causes. There were no marks of violence on his body, and as he was buried at sea...
What about the wailing noises that were heard the night he died? What about that awful smell aboard ship? An odor of death? Was all that just coincidence?
Yeah, how about that, Mr. Cranston? Coincidence?
Well, it hardly seems likely, but...
What about all the trouble Mr. Carew had with the men being afraid to sail the ship again? Do you think you could scare all those men with a peculiar combination of circumstances?
No, that's very true. Well, you've convinced me, Margot.
Well...
Convinced me that I ought to accept Mr. Carew's offer to sail with him aboard the Raven.
Sail? But Lamont, I'll have to start shopping like mad for cruise clothes.
Margot...
Let me see.
Margot.
Hmm?
You didn't hear me correctly. Mr. Carew asked me to sail with him. Just me.
Oh, Lamont, you wouldn't...
Margot, that's final. This is one time you're not going along.
Well, Lamont, needless to say, I'm glad that you've decided to come along this trip.
All right, there you man.
Funny, but I've got a strange feeling about this particular voyage. A feeling that I may not come back alive.
Oh, now, Carew.
Well, Mr. Carew, we'll be sailing with the tide in about 20 minutes.
Good. Captain Flanagan, this is our one and only passenger, Lamont Cranston.
How do you do?
Well, how do you do, sir? So you're the gentleman who's going to ferret out our spook, eh?
Oh. You know the ghost legend?
Captain Flanagan knows all about it.
Mr. Cranston, I'm not a superstitious man. I've examined my cabin where this so-called murder took place from stem to stern and can't find a hiding place big enough even for a ghost. If a spook is going to clamber down that porthole tonight, I'll welcome him with open arms and buy him a spot of rum. He'll deserve it. Now, gentlemen, I'm more worried about my crew than I am of any ghost. Never in all my years at sea have I seen a meaner or uglier bunch of men.
Well, they were the only men we could get, Captain. Sailors are superstitious about a hoodoo ship.
Hey, Captain, look aloft. That man's going to fall off the rigging.
Oh, don't worry about him. Even with one leg, he's more agile than the rest.
Oh, yes. That wooden leg of his doesn't seem to hinder him at all.
That's Rock, the bosun, Captain.
And he's the ugliest of an ugly lot.
Well, he's a good man. I don't know how I'd ever have a crew for you if he hadn't persuaded the men to sign on for another voyage.
I hear you. Bosun, come here.
Aye, aye, sir.
Rock, this is our new skipper, Captain Flanagan.
Welcome, sir. Welcome to the good ship Raven.
Haven't I met you someplace before, Mr. Rock?
Not that I recall, sir.
You look familiar to me. Not perhaps I'm mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Is that tobacco you're chewing, Mr. Rock?
That it is, sir.
I won't have any chewing or smoking while you're on duty.
Yes, sir. Over the side it goes, sir.
Good. Mr. Rock, I've been informed the discipline aboard the ship has been very lax.
Oh?
I'll not tolerate that. As soon as we're out to sea, I want to talk to the entire crew.
I'll see that they're assembled on deck, sir.
Good. Now, back to your work, Mr. Rock.
Aye, aye, sir.
Don't you think you're being a little hard on him, Captain?
Mr. Carew, I hope you won't mind my telling you this, but I'm the captain of this ship. You're the owner. But once we're out to sea, this ship is my responsibility.
No offense, Captain. I quite understand.
Captain Flanagan, for a moment you thought you recognized Rock.
Yes.
Who did you think he was?
A man who used to work for me some years back. And I must have been mistaken. And now, gentlemen, will you do me the honor of dining in my cabin tonight? Perhaps the presence of three men who don't believe he exists will discourage our ghost. Well, Mr. Cranston, Mr. Carew, when we hit that typhoon, there weren't enough able-bodied men aboard her to bury the dead. Oh, yes, yes.
Captain, is it all right if I clean the dishes away, sir?
Yeah, clear away, Jess.
Yes, sir. Well, you were saying, Captain, about the typhoon.
Yes, that's a very interesting yarn, Captain.
Well, for 3 days and 3 nights it blew. I lashed myself to the wheel with the waves breaking across the deck. Finally, the first mate relieved me, and I crawled into my cabin more dead than alive. I didn't care whether the ship sank or not.
I've gone through that same thing, Captain.
You mean lashed to the wheel?
Oh, no, seasickness.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, Lamont, I'm afraid I have a touch of it myself right now.
Oh, no, Carew.
Yes, Cranston. So if you'll both excuse me, I think I'll go out on deck for a little fresh air.
Yes, what's the matter with you? You've broken all the dishes.
What are you staring at?
Yeah, the horns. They've come. I know that.
He's looking at that locker over there in the corner.
Yeah. I seen the door move. Hear that? There's something in there.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Come out.
Yes, Lamont.
Margot.
Miss Lane.
Who is this woman?
I'll explain, Captain. Margot, what do you think you're doing?
A very bad job of stowing away, Lamont. But a very good job of being seasick.
Margot.
Here I am, Lamont.
Oh. Feeling any better, Margot?
Yes, a little, thanks.
Well, you can go below now if you want to. Go to have my cabin. Carew and I are going to bunk together.
Oh, thanks, Lamont. You're a dear.
Wait till this voyage is over before you thank me, Margot. Things are brewing aboard this old ship. Things that may result in the death of any of us.
Have you learned anything yet, Lamont?
Not yet, Margot. But the shadow is going to Captain Flanagan's cabin tonight.
Well, what can you gain by questioning Captain Flanagan?
I'm not going to question him, Margot. Tonight, the shadow is going to be merely an observer. Because I think that an attempt will be made on the captain's life. And I'm going to prevent it, if I can.
Who's there? Who's there?
It's only me, miss. Yes, the steward.
Oh, you frightened me for a minute.
You pardon my saying so, miss. The deck of this ship ain't no place for a young lady to be alone this time of night.
I'm beginning to think you're right, Jess.
This ship is haunted.
What?
I got a feeling that something's gonna happen tonight.
Jess, you don't believe in ghosts, do you?
Maybe yes. Maybe no. But I don't like the feel of death in the air tonight.
Cranston, is that you over there?
No, it's I, Margot.
Where's Lamont? He didn't come back to the cabin.
What? I don't know. What's the matter?
There's something unearthly about it. Miss Lane, do you notice that odor?
What? Yes. Oh.
The odor of death. The same odor that permeated the ship when Captain Rutherford was killed on the last voyage.
Quick, we've got to find Lamont. Jess, you go around to the... Well, where is he?
Who?
Jess. I was just talking to him.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. He was right here a minute ago.
I didn't see anyone talking to you when I came up.
But he was here, I know it. What's that?
That wailing I heard, too, when Captain Rutherford was killed. That scream came from Captain Flanagan's cabin. Come on, hurry!
In a moment, our curtain will rise on Act Two. Meantime, let's talk about how you and your family can keep warm from now until next May. Heat your home with blue coal. You know, it's a fact that with blue coal, which is the finest of Pennsylvania hard coal, you can enjoy comfortable, even warmth throughout your house. Let the cold winter winds blow. You'll be snug and completely free of heating care. One reason it's so easy to heat with blue coal is that it's delivered to your home in exactly the right size for your heating plant. Another reason, and one you want to be sure to remember, is the new Deluxe Blue Coal Heat Regulator. Every home should have one. It's as easy to operate as an electric light switch. It automatically opens and closes the dampers on your furnace and keeps every room at an even temperature. You can let the weatherman do his worst. You're always comfortable. Ask for a free demonstration of the Blue Coal Heat Regulator in your own home. No obligation whatever. Get in touch with your reliable neighborhood Blue Coal dealer tomorrow. He's listed under the words Blue Coal in your classified phone directory. Remember the name, Blue Coal. Blue Coal is color marked for your protection with a harmless blue tint. And now, back to the shadow.
He's dead. Captain Flanagan is dead.
Oh, Mr. Carew. His face is so contorted. He must have suffered horribly. Oh, Lamont.
I heard the scream and came running. What is it?
Look for yourself, Cranston. Captain Flanagan is dead. The same way that Rutherford got it. And not a mark on him.
I think you're wrong, Carew. There's a slight scratch on his forehead.
Let me see. So there is. How could a little scratch like that have caused his death? And where is the murder weapon?
Mr. Carew, you've had plantations in the West Indies for many years. Haven't you ever heard of a native poison brewed from the roots of strange herbs called mauna gua? It's known to cause instant death.
Why, no. No, I don't know the poison. Why do you ask?
Why? Because in some mysterious way, Captain Flanagan was murdered with that drug.
The way you talk, Lamont, seemed that you believed Mr. Carew had committed the murder.
Perhaps he has, Margot.
But you were there when it happened. You must have seen how it was done.
Margot, I was right in the cabin when it happened, but I might have been in New York for all the good it did me. The Shadow went to Captain Flanagan's cabin last night. The door was locked and bolted, so I knocked. When he opened the door to see who it was, the Shadow slipped into the cabin. Then he locked and bolted the door again, but before I could...
I could have sworn I heard someone knock at the door. Must be my imagination. Well, to bed. Strange. What's that odor? Smells like it's coming from that ventilator. And the wailing. Just as Carew said he...
Then he screamed and fell to the floor of the cabin. I heard you and Carew coming toward the cabin, and when Carew forced the door, the Shadow slipped out.
And you didn't see how it happened?
No, Margot. I saw it happen, but the whole thing had me completely baffled.
Come in.
Begging your pardon, miss, but Mr. Carew wants both you and Mr. Cranston, sir, to come up on the bridge.
Did he say what for, Rock?
There seems to be some trouble, sir. The men refuse to go on. It looks pretty serious. I think you'd better talk to them, Mr. Carew. They look like they're in a pretty dangerous mood.
Yes, they know how Flanagan died, and they want to turn back.
Well, we can't sail the ship without them. I guess you'd better union them.
But this is mutiny. It's unheard of in this day and age.
Oh, please do something, Mr. Carew.
All right, I'll do something. Something that may convince them.
Let's have some action around here!
Men, listen to me! We're going to continue our course to the West Indies.
Not in this present ship, we're not. We want to turn back. What happened to Captain Flanagan happened to...
Let me speak! What happened to Captain Flanagan?
And Captain Rutherford, don't forget. The ship is hot.
It was all an accident. There was nothing supernatural about it.
This ship is cursed and we're not sailing. We want to turn back. And we're going to turn back.
Men, please. Suppose I prove to you that there is nothing to fear on this ship.
How are you going to do it?
Then,
we want to know.
if I sleep in the captain's cabin and nothing happens to me, will you continue the voyage?
That's fair enough.
Fair enough it is.
You do it, and if nothing happens to you, we'll go on.
Aye.
You'll prove it to us.
I've never asked a man working for me to do anything that I wouldn't do. I'm sleeping in the captain's cabin tonight.
Now, have you got all that, Margot?
Let's see if I've remembered everything. I'm to watch the porthole in the captain's cabin.
And don't forget to stay out of sight.
Right. When I get your signal.
Not my direct signal. The porthole slamming shut will be the signal.
That's right. Then I'm to shoot the gun.
And remember, just into the air to arouse the men of the crew. You're not to take a shot at the murderer. I'd like to take him alive.
Who is he, Lamont?
Well, I'm still not sure, Margot. But I do know how the murders were committed. I spent the whole afternoon inspecting the captain's cabin again, and at last it came to me. You see, the victims were awakened by...
Come in.
Carew.
I was looking for you, Lamont. I wonder if you'd do me a favor.
Well, if I can.
Do you want to speak with Lamont alone, Mr. Carew?
No, thank you. It may sound silly to you, Lamont, but would you take care of this letter for me?
A letter? Well, what do you mean?
It's to my wife. Just in case, you know.
Oh, nothing's going to happen, Mr. Carew.
Why, of course not.
Of course not. I feel as though I'm taking that last long walk tonight. But it's something I've got to do. Nice evening, isn't it? Seems pretty fine to be alive. Well, I won't bore you with my emotions. Better have a go at that cabin. You will take care of that letter for me, won't you, Lamont?
Certainly.
So long.
He spoke as if he were going to die tonight.
And well he may, Margot. If anything goes wrong with the trap I've set for the killer. Well, let's get along. The Shadow has work to do.
Now to lock and bolt the door. There. Now there's nothing to do but wait. I could go to bed and wait. Huh? What's that? Who's there? Strange. I thought I heard someone knocking. Huh. Must be my nerves.
Mr. Carew.
Voice. Maybe they're right. Maybe the ship is haunted.
No, Mr. Carew. It is the Shadow's voice you heard.
But I can't see you.
The Shadow is invisible to your eyes. But let me reassure you, I am a man of flesh and blood, and I am your friend. I've cast a hypnotic mist over your mind, which makes me invisible.
I don't understand. What do you want of me?
I've come to help you, to save you from almost certain death.
How can you save me?
Be patient, Mr. Carew, and obey my orders, and we will outwit the killer.
But I... That odor. The odor of death.
The killer has come earlier than I expected.
And now the moaning. Shadow, that awful smell. It seems to be coming from the ventilator.
Mr. Carew.
What is it?
Don't move another step. You see the ventilator in front of the porthole?
Yes?
The murderer is just outside waiting for you to go to that ventilator. As you pass the open porthole, he will strike.
Then I won't pass it. I'll be safe if I don't.
You must pass it.
What?
If we are to catch our killer red-handed, please follow my instructions. Now, count 3 to yourself and walk toward the ventilator. When I shout now, drop to the floor instantly. Ready?
Ready. 1, 2, 3.
Are you all right, Mr. Carew?
Yes, I'm all right. What's all that shouting about?
Unless I'm mistaken, that means our killer's criminal days are over. If you'll examine the porthole, you'll find a sharp steel needle dangling from a silk thread. But be extremely careful of the way you handle it, as it's coated with a very deadly poison. That, Mr. Carew, is the murder weapon.
Lamont, Mr. Crewe is about the happiest man in the world this morning.
Well, he should be. He came very close to following Captain Rutherford and Captain Flanagan as the killer's third victim.
And Rock is in chains in the hole, Lamont?
Yes. Carew's turning him over to the authorities as soon as we dock at Tecito.
Well, did Rock finally admit why he had committed these murders?
Well, Margot, it seems Rock had been hired by another concern to ruin Carew. Not only on this ship, but on any other ship that Carew might try to hire.
You know, Lamont, I still don't know how Rock could do all those things.
What things, Margot?
Well, for instance, the wailing sound that we heard.
Well, that's simple enough. He rigged up some large tin drums on a rosin cord hung onto the yardarm. When the wind whirled them about, it produced our moaning sound.
But what about the odor? That terrible odor of death.
That was nothing more than a few basic chemicals placed in the ventilators. Our imagination supplied the so-called odor of death.
Simple enough. But how did Rock actually commit the murders?
I knew, Margot, that the killer had used a blowgun and a poisoned dart. But what puzzled me was, what became of the dart? You remember we couldn't find it.
Oh, now, Lamont, that's not so simple.
On the contrary, Margot, Rock merely slid down a rope to the porthole, shot his poisoned dart, and retrieved it by pulling it back on a silk thread.
Huh, as simple as all that? Why, I could have figured that out if I'd had time enough.
Well, of course you could, dear. Give you time enough and you could have figured it out, certainly. There's only one thing you overlooked, Margot.
What's that, Lamont?
A peculiar characteristic of our friend Carew.
Really? What characteristic?
He just doesn't like being buried at sea.
Well, you can understand. Oh, Lamont.
We have a special announcement to make in just a few moments, but now we'd like to present to you Blue Coal's distinguished home heating expert, John Barclay. Mr. Barclay.
Thank you. Friends, they say that well begun is half done. And I want to point out to you today the truth of that old saying as it applies to modern home heating. You know, there's really nothing complicated about the operation of a furnace. Although, as experience perhaps has shown you, there are seemingly simple things that can cause you trouble. Now, why do these troubles arise? Believe me when I tell you that most of them are caused by not starting out right. Well begun is half done. You'll find it pays you over and over again to take pains at the beginning of the season to start your heating plant off right. Now, here's my suggestion. Call your reliable blue coal dealer, and he'll send an expert, John Barclay-trained serviceman to your home. There's no charge whatever for this. He'll check your heating plant thoroughly and start you on a comfortable and economical fall and winter season. Call him tomorrow, before cold weather settles in for good. You'll be surprised and delighted to find how much easier and how much more efficient it is to heat your home the blue coal way. Phone your friendly blue coal dealer tomorrow. Thank you.
It's our great privilege to present to you at this time Mr. Norman Weiser of Radio Daily. Mr. Weiser, as editor and critic, has long been regarded as a leading authority in the world of radio drama. Mr. Weiser.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, radio today is certainly a major influence in the field of drama. Radio dramatizations such as The Shadow are very carefully selected and are designed particularly to suit the listening tastes of an exceptionally discriminating audience. Today, I am representing Harper & Brothers in commemoration of their new book, Writers' Radio Theater of 1940-1941, which contains the 10 outstanding radio dramas of that period. It is my honor to present one of the 10 merit awards to The Shadow, as having contributed one of the best radio dramas of the year. It was called The Ghost Walks Again, written by Jerry Devine, produced by Wilson Tuttle, and presented over this network March 16, 1941.
Thank you, Mr. Norman Weiser, and thank you, Radio Daily. Today's program was based on a copyrighted story. The characters, names, places, and plot are fictitious. Any similarity to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The Shadow knows.
Next week, same time, same station, your neighborhood blue coal dealer brings you another thrilling adventure of the shadow. Be sure to listen, and be sure to phone your friendly blue coal dealer for greater heating comfort at less cost. So don't forget, keep the home fires burning with blue coal.
Nice to hear the Shadow getting an award. 82 years ago, October 19th, 1941, the Shadow on this Thursday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Everyone who works for a living knows that illness or injury may keep them from earning a living. Today, more than 9 out of 10 American workers are covered by Social Security, and each one should know that if he becomes severely disabled, he and his family may be eligible for monthly Social Security disability payments. More than 1 million people are now receiving benefits each month under this program. For more information about Social Security disability benefits, write to Social Security, Department 15, Hollywood 28, California, and ask for a free copy of Booklet 29 called If You Become Disabled.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we get to hear an episode of the Phyl Coe Mysteries, syndicated by Phyl Coe Radio Tubes, Bud Collyer, Peggy Allenby, starring as Phyl Coe and her boyfriend. This from 75 years ago, October 19th, 1937, The Last Will and Testament.
Deserved it, trying to get away with something like that.
Phyl Coe Radio Mysteries, another program in the great Phyl Coe Radio Mystery Contest, brought to you transcribed every week at this time over this station by your Phyl Coe Radio Tube dealer. Plan to get your share of the big weekly prizes and the huge grand prizes. Phyl Coe Mystery Book Number 2 gives you all the details. It contains the official entry blanks on which your entries must be written. Ask your Phyl Coe Radio Tube dealer as soon as possible for your free copy of Phyl Coe Mystery Book Number 2. It's yours just for the asking. Open your Phyl Coe Mystery Book, those of you who have copies, to pages 8 and 9. Follow the action of the program on the diagram as you listen and hear Phyl Coe, the girl detective, find the guilty person in her newest case, Last Will and Testament. Here's another opportunity for you to win some of that $50,000 in cash prizes. As our scene opens, Phyl Coe is just receiving a long-distance telephone call.
Yes, I'm Phyllis Coe. Who's calling, please?
Oh, Phil, this is Barbara Bosworth.
What is it, Barbara?
I'm up at Lonely Winds, my Uncle Daniel's estate. Oh, Phil, you've got to help me.
Barbara, what's happened?
It's Uncle Daniel. I can't talk on the phone any longer. But please come.
All right, dear. I'll get Tom Taylor to drive me right up.
Yeah?
Is Miss Barbara Bosworth here?
Yes, come in. You're Miss Coe, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I'm Corporal Palmer, State Police. Us boys have heard a lot about you, Miss Coe. I'm sure glad to meet you in person.
Thank you. Where is Miss Bosworth?
Right there in the sitting room. Go right in.
Come on, Tom.
Righto.
Oh, Phil, I'm so glad you've come.
Hello, Barbara, dear. You know Tom Taylor, of course.
Yes. How do you do?
Look here, what's happened?
Oh, Phil, Uncle Daniel's been murdered.
Barbara.
Oh, Phil, you've got to help us.
Us? Who else is in the house?
My father, my aunt, and the housekeeper. They're all upstairs.
Barbara, tell us exactly what happened.
Well, Uncle Daniel invited my father, Aunt Ellie, and me here to dinner last night.
Your father is Dr. James Bosworth, the heart specialist, isn't he?
Yes. He and Uncle Daniel were brothers, and Aunt Ellie's their sister.
Please go on, dear.
After dinner, Uncle Daniel asked us to assemble in the library. That's the room right next to this one.
I see.
After we were seated around the library table, Uncle Daniel sent me out to the kitchen to get Mrs. Clements. Uncle Daniel was an invalid, you know.
Who was Mrs. Clements?
The housekeeper. She's been here with Uncle a great many years. I brought Mrs. Clements back to the library, and we took our seats at the table with the others. Then Uncle Daniel took a small piece of paper from his pocket and gave it to my father. And Uncle Daniel was saying,
James, this is the combination of my safe. The safe is in the wall behind that oil painting. Now go over there and open it.
All right, Dan. I've often wondered where that safe was.
Just say you have. But I don't like people meddling in my affairs.
Fine way to talk to your own flesh and blood.
Ellie, you give your tongue a sleigh ride. When I want your opinion, I'll ask you for it.
I suppose your housekeeper knows all about the safe.
Oh, no, Miss Bosworth, honestly. Ellie, leave Mrs. Clements alone. Now, Mrs. Clements, if my sister bothers you again, change your seat.
Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
Well, Dan, the safe's open.
There's a long envelope lying right in the front. Bring it here.
Here you are, Dan. Shall I open it?
No, I can do that much for myself. I brought you here tonight to read you something. There's a lawyer coming out in the morning, and he's going to draw up my last will and testament from this pile of notes I've written in my own hand. It takes the place of the will that you all know about, the one that I made several years ago. I invited you all to sleep here tonight so that you could be present when the will is drawn. Now, here's what I'm going to get him to put in my will. To my brother James, $1,000 as a token of my affection.
What? 1,000?
Quiet, Ellie. That's very kind of you, Daniel.
Now, Ellie, here's what I say about you.
Yes, Daniel?
To my sister Ellie, $1,000.
What?
Be quiet. I'm not finished. To my niece Barbara, with deep affection and gratitude, $10,000.
Why, Uncle Daniel, I don't know what to say.
Thank you, Dan. I'm grateful to you for my daughter.
And to my housekeeper, Josephine Clements, as a reward for 20 years of untiring and devoted service during my long period of sickness, I give and bequeath the balance of my estate to use as long as she may live.
Good heavens, Daniel.
Shut up, Ellie.
Mr. Daniel, I don't know what to say.
I shouldn't think you would, Mrs. Clements. What have you done to twist my brother around your finger this way?
Ellie.
Don't Ellie me, James Bosworth. If you had a spark of family pride, you'd fight this will to your last breath.
And Ellie.
It's spite work, that's what it is. Just because I wouldn't give up my life to a disagreeable invalid.
Now, Ellie, it's Dan's money. I'm sure he wouldn't be doing this if he didn't think Mrs. Clements deserved it.
Thank you, Mr. James. And Mr. Daniel, I only hope that the responsibilities of all that money will not be mine for many years.
Well, Mrs. Clements, I haven't long for this earth. I'm sure of that. Here, James, put these papers back in the safe until that lawyer comes in the morning.
Certainly, Dan.
Now it's getting late. Why, it's 5 minutes to 12. Let's all get to bed before Ellie busts loose again.
No, you've no need to talk like that, Daniel Bosworth. I'm not as bad as you think I am.
Oh, Mrs. Clements, I'll help Uncle Daniel upstairs.
Oh, thank you, Miss Barbara.
You coming to bed, James?
In a little while, Dan. I noticed you have one of those new XX Phyl Coe radio sets in the sitting room.
Yes, I've only had it about a week.
I've heard that this new Phyl Coe gives excellent reception on foreign stations. I think I'll go in there and see what I can pick up.
You'd want to listen to a lot of foreign drivel is beyond me.
I suppose it is, Ellie. But I'd like to try it anyway. Good night, all.
Yeah, good night, James.
Well, Phil, I slept very soundly all night long.
And when was the body found, Barbara?
This morning at 8 o'clock when Mrs. Clements took Uncle Dan his breakfast. My father examined the body and found blood on his ear and on the pillow. Father said it was murder. He called the state police, and then I phoned you.
I see. And what have the police found?
They searched the house and found a long hat pin stuck in Mrs. Clements' pincushion. There were bloodstains on it, but no fingerprints. The pin had been used to pierce Uncle Dan's brain through his ear. Oh, Bill, it's so horrible.
Oh, you poor kid. Must have been an awful shock.
Have the police discovered anything else?
Yes. The safe was found open, and his notes for the will were missing. Oh, yes, and the police found a torn piece of one of the notes under Uncle Daniel's bed.
Then the safe must have been robbed before your uncle was murdered. How long had he been dead when Mrs. Clements found him?
The coroner said about 6 or 7 hours.
I see. The murder must have taken place around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Barbara, will you please ask Mrs. Clements and the rest to come here?
All right, Phil. I'll explain who you are and have them waiting in the hall.
Well, Aunt Ellie sounds like a charming woman, doesn't she?
Tom, I don't think she's quite as bad as she pretends to be.
Oh?
Miss Cole?
Oh, yes, Mrs. Clements. Please come in. Mrs. Clements, was it your hatpin that killed Mr. Daniel?
Yes, Miss Coe. It was the silver one with my initials that poor Mr. Dan gave me for Christmas.
Oh, of course. Now, when Dr. James Bosworth examined the body, did he say how long his brother had been dead?
Yes. He said Mr. Daniel had been dead about 2 hours at the most.
I see. Do you know anything about the murder, Mrs. Clemens?
Oh, no. No, I don't. Everybody thinks I did it because my hatpin was used. But I swear I didn't do it.
All right. You may go. And thank you very much.
Well, I suppose you're going to prove that I murdered Daniel. Is that your idea?
Of course not, Miss Ellie. Please close the door.
I hope you're not going to let that Mrs. Clemens get out of this house.
Now, Miss Ellie, what makes you think that old housekeeper murdered your brother?
Well, she had that sickening sweet way about her. Acted like sugar wouldn't melt in her mouth.
Oh, don't you see? If Mrs. Clemens did murder your brother, it's hardly likely that she would have stolen or destroyed the notes for the will. Those notes were her only proof that she was included in the bequests.
I believe she's feeble-minded enough to have destroyed the notes. If so, she'll never get a cent.
And who will get the estate?
Those who have a right to it. Daniel's own flesh and blood, James, Barbara, and me. Now, I'm not going to stay here another minute. You have no right to butt in. Here's my brother James. He'll tell you the same thing.
Come in, Dr. Bosworth.
Thank you, Miss Coe. It's awfully kind of you to come all the way out here to help us.
I'm glad to help Barbara any way I can. Oh, this is Mr. Taylor.
How do you do, Dr. Bosworth?
How do you do?
Now, Doctor, how long did you stay down here in the sitting room last night after the others had gone to bed?
Oh, about 2 hours, I should say. I was very much interested in this new radio set. I was listening to an interesting program from London. I turned off the radio and went to bed right after the announcer said goodnight and the station signed off.
Now, that door at the side of this room is the only entrance to the library. Therefore, the person who opened the safe and took the notes must have passed through this room.
That's correct.
When you were here listening to this radio, did you see or hear anyone passing into the library?
No, indeed. And obviously I'd have seen anyone who entered.
Have you ever had the combination of that safe, Doctor?
Oh, dear me, no. No one other than my brother Dan has ever opened that safe until the robbery. Unless, of course, the housekeeper was entrusted with the combination.
For an educated man, Dr. Bosworth, you're an awful fool.
My dear lady.
Oh, please, Doctor. Your attempts at lying have been pitiful and childish. Oh, I dread telling Barbara the ghastly truth. Why on earth did you do this thing?
Yes. Yes, I did it. All the world, including my own daughter Barbara, thinks I'm a very rich man. But I'm not. I've incurred the most serious obligations. I owe to men you probably never heard of. Criminals, some of them. I wasn't frightened, though. I knew that someday at my brother's death, my inheritance from him would enable me not only to clear off these debts, but guarantee that Barbara's future would be safe and secure. Last night, when I realized that Daniel's new will shattered all my dreams, I was terrified. Then, all alone here, I brooded over this thing till nothing else mattered. I decided I must make those dreams of mine come true. And this was the only way.
No wonder it wasn't pleasant for Phyl Coe, the girl detective, to find out that Dr. Bosworth, the father of her friend Barbara, was the murderer. But you can't let personal friendship stand in your way when you are a really good detective. You heard all the reasons Phil had for suspecting Dr. Bosworth. Surely you can list 3 of them in answer to the contest question in Phyl Coe Mystery Book number 2, which you can get free from your Phyl Coe radio tube dealer. In this contest, you must have good reception. The tubes in your set must work perfectly so that you will not miss one important detail in any program. One sure way to get good radio reception is to use Phyl Coe radio tubes. Have the tubes in your set checked up. Names of the major winners in this week's Phyl Coe Radio Mystery Contest will be broadcast as soon as possible on a following program. Listen every week at this time over this station. Next week, another opportunity for you to win a big weekly cash prize and become eligible for a mammoth grand prize. Next week, another Phyl Coe Radio Mystery. Listen to the case of the stolen sables. Hear Phyl Coe, the girl detective, solve this baffling case. It's another opportunity for you to win your share of $50,000 in cash.
Much later, Bud Collyer would become the host of To Tell the Truth. But only a couple of years after this episode of Phyl Coe Mysteries aired, Bud Collyer would step out of being the second banana role and become Clark Kent and Superman on the radio. Phyl Coe Mysteries, 75 years ago, October 19th, 1937, here on this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Yes, Friday is in sight. Have yourself a great weekend, won't you please? And we will be back soon with another podcast here. Our webpage, classicradio.stream. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station.